Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Wednesday, May 14, 2025. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. questioned about vaccines at two congressional committee hearings. One senator accuses him of lying to the committee during his confirmation about his plans for programs that promote vaccinations. House Speaker Mike Johnson confident that a deal can be reached with holdout House Republicans who insist as a condition of their votes on an increase in the maximum state and local tax deduction, or SALT, in the comprehensive budget reconciliation bill. Vice President JD Vance holds a breakfast with law enforcement during this National Police Week, while House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries tries and fails to get House Republicans to put up a plaque required by law honoring police who, quote, bravely protected and defended the U.S. Capitol during the attack January 6, 2021. President Donald Trump is in Qatar, second stop on his Middle East trip, announcing a deal for that country's airline to buy nearly $100 billion worth of Boeing jets. Federal judge orders the release of a Georgetown University researcher from India detained by immigration officials for allegedly spreading Hamas propaganda. And we'll have the latest on a House resolution that would impeach President Trump, introduced by a House Democrat but opposed by House Democratic leaders. Washington Post writes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. defended his messaging on vaccines amid a growing measles outbreak, the firing of thousands of federal health workers, and major cuts to the health agencies he oversees as he faced lawmakers Wednesday on Capitol Hill. The Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services appeared before a House Appropriations Subcommittee and moved to the Senate Health Committee in the afternoon for a pair of hearings that are Kennedy's first time testifying before Congress since being sworn in. That was from the Washington Post. Here's part of the House hearing, questions from Congressman Mark Pocan, Democrat from Wisconsin.
In trying to get to know you, there's some public things that, make you somewhat of a conundrum to people like me, just trying to, understand. One is on vaccines, and I don't want to ask you about all the specific theories on vaccines, but something that might be helpful is you've previously said you vaccinated your children. Just because I think this is a helpful answer, and this isn't a gotcha, I promise. If you had a child today, would you vaccinate that child for measles?
For measles, probably for measles. What I would say is my opinions about vaccines are irrelevant. I have directed Jay Bhattacharya.
Sure. No, like I said, I don't want to.
So that everybody can make that decision. But I don't want to seem like I'm being evasive.
Yeah.
But I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
Right. No, I got that. And I'm not asking you to give them medical advice, but would you vaccinate your child for measles?
If I answer that question directly, that it will seem like I'm giving advice to other people, and I don't want to be doing that. I want people to make.
But that's kind of your jurisdiction because CDC does give advice, right? I'm not trying to do it as a gotcha. It's just kind of.
What we're going to try to do is to lay out the pros and cons, the risks and benefits accurately as we understand them with replicable studies.
Can you talk about chickenpox? Would you vaccinate your child against chickenpox?
I don't want to give advice. I can tell you in Europe they don't use the chickenpox vaccine specifically because the preclinical trial shows that when you inoculate the population for chickenpox, you get shingles in older people, which is more dangerous.
Just one last one, just a yes or no, please, if we could. Polio?
Polio? Again, I don't want to be giving advice.
That's fair. No, that's fair. Like I said, I was not doing it as a gotcha. I thought it could be helpful if.
Congressman Mark Pocan, Democrat from Wisconsin, questioning Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at today's House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing. Vaccine policy also came up when the Secretary testified later before the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee with questions from Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut.
Secretary Kennedy, I want to talk to you about your relationship with this committee and this Congress. I want to talk to you about the statements that you made to the chairman of this committee and to members of this committee during your confirmation hearing about vaccines. You didn't tell the truth. I find that to be really dangerous for our relationship. If I were the chairman who believes in vaccines and voted for you because he believed what you said about supporting vaccines, my head would be exploding. In the hearing, you told us, quote, I will not work to impound, divert, or otherwise reduce any funding appropriated by Congress for the purpose of vaccination programs. That's not the truth. You've done exactly. Let me finish my question.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said. I'm just asking you to repeat it so I can understand your question.
During the hearing, I'll repeat it. During the hearing, you said to this committee and to the Finance Committee, I will not work to impound, divert, or otherwise reduce funding appropriated by Congress for the purpose of vaccination programs. That is not what happened. You've done the opposite. You canceled $12 billion in grants to the states, including my state, that are used to administer and track vaccines. You promised Chairman Cassidy.
When did I do that?
Madam Chair, would you allow me to finish my question?
Keep going with your question.
When did I do that?
Let me finish my question.
Accusation. Just tell me when I did it so I can understand what the question is.
You have canceled $12 billion in public health grants to states, whether you know this or not. That funding is used by the states in part to be able to administer and dispense information about vaccines. Mr. Secretary, let me give you the full panoply of
accusations,
the things you said before this committee that didn't turn out to be true. You also promised Chairman Cassidy that the FDA would not change vaccine standards from, quote, historical norms. But what happened as soon as you were sworn in? You announced new standards for vaccine approvals that you proudly referred to in your own press release as a radical departure from current practice. And experts say that that departure will delay approvals. You also said, specific to the measles vaccine, that you support the measles vaccine. But you have consistently been undermining the measles vaccine. You told the public that the vaccine wanes very quickly. You went on the Dr. Phil show and said that the measles vaccine was never fully tested for safety. You said there's fetal debris in the measles vaccine. And this morning—
All true.
This morning in front of—
Do you want me to lie to the public?
That's not— none of that is—
Of course it's true. Of course it's true, Senator. You're Senator begging your product. You do not know what you're talking about.
For the record—
Let's have a little bit of order so that you can get
Madam
your
Chair,
question
I'm
and we can get
I didn't ask for a response yet.
I understand
I'd like to lay out the predicate of my question before I'm interrupted by the witness. He should have some respect for this committee.
Go ahead.
Just this morning in front of the House of Representatives, you also said that you, in fact, would not recommend that kids get vaccinated for measles. You said you would just lay out the pros and cons. Okay, so this is the summation of everything that you have said to compromise people's faith in the measles vaccine in particular is contrary to what you said before this committee. You said you support the measles vaccine, but then you have laid out a set of facts that are contested, and I will submit information for the record from experts who contest what you've said about the vaccine, and the result is to undermine faith in the vaccine. It's kind of like saying, listen, I think you should swim in that lake, but, you know, the lake is probably toxic and there's probably a ton of snakes and alligators in that lake, but I think you should swim in it. Nobody's going to swim in that lake if that's what you say. And so I want you to acknowledge that when you say you support the measles vaccine and then go out and repeatedly undermine the vaccine with information that is contested by public health experts, that is not supporting the vaccine. And so I guess I have two simple questions for you. One is, can you clarify what you said in the House this morning? Are you or are you not recommending that families get their children vaccinated, or are you just giving people the pros and cons? And do you understand that when you say these things about the measles vaccine, what ends up happening is less people get the vaccine? That may be what you want, but do you understand that the result of constantly questioning the efficacy or safety of the vaccine results in less people getting the vaccine? So I don't necessarily want to spend the remaining 20 seconds in an argument over the science, but do you at least understand that that's the consequence of what you're saying? And are you actually still recommending people get the vaccine, or are you not?
Senator, if I advised you to swim in a lake that I knew there to be alligators in, wouldn't you want me to tell you there were alligators in it?
So are you recommending the measles vaccine or not?
What I've said and what I said—
It doesn't sound like you are. If that's—
Are you going to let me answer? Or are you going to keep interrupting?
Are you or are you not?
Are you going to let me answer? What I pledged before this committee during my confirmation is that I would tell the truth, that I would have radical transparency. I'm going to tell the truth about everything we know and we don't know about vaccines.
Are you recommending the measles vaccine or not?
I am not going to just tell people everything is safe and effective if I know that there's issues. I need to respect people's intelligence.
I think you're answering the question. I think you're
And the
answering the
reason
question. That's
that
really
people-
dangerous for the American public and for families.
The reason people have lost faith in this program is because they've been lied to by public officials for
Secretary
year
of Health
after
and
year
Human
after
Services
year.
no longer recommending the measles vaccine.
Senator Marshall.
All right.
And by the way, I said at the hearing this morning that I was recommending the measles vaccine. Go look at the transcript.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. questioned by Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, at today's Senate Health Committee hearing. More from the Washington Post article about the Secretary's appearances on Capitol Hill at 2 hearings. The Trump administration has moved to reshape the nation's public health infrastructure through eliminating roughly 20,000 jobs, ousting top career officials, threatening billions of dollars in federally funded scientific research, and proposing a major reorganization of the health department. Such actions have been deeply divisive, with Democrats and public health experts expressing strong concern that the changes will damage the nation's public health infrastructure, and Kennedy and his allies countering that they are necessary to refocus the federal government on addressing chronic disease. That was from the Washington Post article. Here's Secretary Kennedy speaking about that in his opening statement at the Senate committee hearing until he was interrupted by protesters in the audience.
I'm honored to be before you today to present the Department of Health and Human Services fiscal year 2026 budget. Debilitating disease, contaminated food, toxic environments, addiction, and mental illness affect Americans across every race, class, and political belief. When my team and I took the helm at HHS, we set out with clear goals. First, we aim to make America healthy again with a special focus on the chronic disease epidemic. Second, we committed to delivering more efficient, responsive, and effective service to over 100 million Americans who rely on Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs. Third, we focus on achieving these goals while cutting costs for taxpayers. We intend to do more, a lot more, with less. The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. That was a made for C-SPAN moment. The Secretary will resume.
Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, chair of the committee at today's hearing with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Health and Human Services Secretary. People in the audience shouting, RFK kills people with AIDS. Returning to the Secretary's testimony at the House Appropriations Subcommittee in the morning, Congressman Mike Simpson, Republican from Idaho, asked about, as Associated Press reports it, U.S. health regulators announced an effort Tuesday to phase out ingestible fluoride supplements sometimes used to strengthen children's teeth, opening a new front in Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s effort against a mainstay of dental care.
I am concerned about the fluoride issue. I've seen the benefits, having been a practicing dentist for 22 years. I just noticed this morning that the FDA brings action to remove ingestible fluoride prescription drug products for children from the market. And as I'm reading through this, I want to see some of these studies, but it says the best way to prevent cavities in children is by avoiding excessive sugar intake and good dental hygiene, obvious. Then it says for the same reason that fluoride may kill bacteria on teeth, it may also kill intestinal bacteria important to children's health. I would tell you, you don't prevent cavities by fluoride killing the bacteria in the mouth. What it does is make the enamel more resistant to decay. So I want to see the studies on this and where we're headed with this. And I will tell you that if you are successful in banning fluoride, I noticed you congratulated Utah and Florida, I think, for banning it. That's up to them. They can do what they want. But we better put a lot more money into dental education because we're going to need a whole lot more dentists.
I think that, Marty McCary's concern with ingestible fluoride is that the emerging science shows the benefits to fluoride to cares and to cavity prevention comes from topical exposures rather than it was once thought that it was systemic, that if you ingested it, that the benefit came from that. We now know that virtually all the benefit is from topical, and we can get that through mouthwashes, we can get through fluoridated toothpastes. The National Toxicity Program issued a report in August, a meta-review of all the science that now exists on fluoride, and showed a direct inverse correlation between fluoride exposure, dose-related, and lower IQ. Is an issue that we have to all be concerned with. We want high IQ kids.
Mr. Hoyer,
right now.
Ms. Hoyer.
I appreciate that, and I look forward to working with you on it.
Okay.
Questions to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from Congressman Mike Simpson, Republican from Idaho, at today's House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing. You're listening to Washington Today. Story from CBS News. The House is pushing forward on President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill as the final committees considered some of the most contentious parts of the major budget package aimed at addressing the president's defense, energy, and tax priorities. The Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, and Agriculture committees began meeting Tuesday to debate and vote on their proposals as Republicans remain divided on a number of major issues from Medicaid to tax cuts. After a nearly 18-hour markup, the Ways and Means panel, which is responsible for the tax portions of the bill, advanced its portion of legislation Wednesday morning in a 26-19 vote. But the key sticking point, a cap on the state and local tax deduction, often referred to as SALT, appeared to go unresolved. Republicans who represent blue states have pushed for an increase to the $10,000 cap, but balked at a proposed $30,000 cap in recent days. That was from CBS News. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, asked at a news conference today about the SALT talks.
What's the latest on SALT? You have a new number that would break the deadlock.
I'm not telling you that here this morning. No, let me say this on SALT. Look, we have people of very deep. Everybody's in good faith. We're working through it. We worked through it. I was working on it up to about 1:30 last night. Okay, we're getting closer, and but there are basically two different factors. There's red states and blue state folks, right? We got more red state folks in our conference, and they have concerns about it. But we have blue state people who have realities they've got to deal with at home, and they need some relief for their constituents. So I am trying to be the sort of the neutral umpire in the negotiation and build consensus, so I won't come out here and handicap it and tell you numbers and all that. But I will tell you, I'm absolutely confident we're going to be able to work out a compromise that everybody can live with. Look, when you have a bill this big, with this many pieces and this many components and this complex and comprehensive, virtually no one's going to be 100% satisfied with every piece of the bill. It's just not possible. Everybody's having to give a little, and they're willing to do that because they know the stakes are so high, as my leaders here have articulated. So we'll get there. We're going to get this done, deliver it for the American people, and I remain as confident today as I was when we started this process. So thanks so much.
House Speaker Mike Johnson at a news conference on Capitol Hill with other House Republican leaders. Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican from New York, a leader of the SALT caucus, was interviewed on CNN today.
I'm hopeful. We've had some discussions. We're still a ways apart as far as I and my other SALT colleagues are concerned. The fact is that in 2017, SALT was used as a pay-for many of the provisions of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It expires at the end of this year and comes back unlimited. Now, we understand that with it would come the alternative minimum tax coming back in full effect. The standard deduction would be cut in half. So it's incumbent on everybody to negotiate in good faith and come to an agreement. We have been waiting for months for leadership, for Chairman Smith of the Ways and Means Committee to actually negotiate with us over this number, and they waited until the last minute and tried to jam us with a $30,000 number with a $400,000 income cap. That's unacceptable, and we said no very clearly, and so we're going through the process of finally negotiating with leadership to come to hopefully an agreement. But, I look at it very simply. A district like mine, okay, just north of New York City. 3 of the 4 counties that I represent are in the top 16 highest property tax counties in America. And so having an income cap of $400,000 would devastate so many families across my district, and I'm just not going to accept it. And so, we will negotiate and hopefully come to an agreement. But the fact is that as this stands, as currently written, I'm a no.
Congressman Mike Lawler, Republican from New York, today on CNN. More from the CBS News article about budget reconciliation. The Energy and Commerce Committee was still meeting Wednesday morning and well into the day following overnight debate on its portion of the legislation. The panelists tasked with finding $880 billion in cuts, which has implicated the popular entitlement program Medicaid. The Agriculture Committee also began meeting Tuesday evening, breaking for the night. After 3 hours, the panelists tasked with finding $230 billion in cuts. And the most contentious issue surrounds the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, widely known as food stamps. The committee's proposal would increase the age requirement for able-bodied adults without children to qualify for benefits, while shifting more of the cost to the states. House Speaker Mike Johnson at his news conference today said that some of the reporting on the Medicaid portion of budget reconciliation has not been factual.
As we're working to get this done, House Democrats are working overtime to deceive the American people about this. We've discussed it already this morning, but they're not talking about what the bill actually does. They're using talking points that are pretty stale. They're not afraid to lie about what's in it, and we're not afraid to tell the truth about what the Democrats are doing. They've already been forced to take down their advertisements because they were filled with falsehoods about what the bill supposedly was going to have in it. You probably saw last week, they're at it again. They released a CBO report, so-called, that claims that our legislation cuts many millions of Americans out of Medicaid. It's obviously demonstrably false. Other outlets have reported on this, okay? They included policies that are not even in the legislation. How could they have done that? Because they released the report before the bill text was issued, okay? And most of the media ran with that, okay? And I'm just going to say this to my friends in the media, on the Hill Press Corps in particular, right? If you allow Democrats to make these intentionally false claims without pushback, then you're aiding and abetting in the spread of misinformation. I mean, I'm stating the obvious. The job is to get the facts out there, so we hope you will. We said repeatedly, we are protecting Medicaid for the people who need and deserve it. This program is an essential lifeline for our most vulnerable Americans, pregnant women, single mothers, low-income seniors, the disabled. That's who Medicaid is intended to be for, and that's who we're protecting, while we're eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse to improve Medicaid. These are reforms to restore and preserve the system so that it doesn't collapse on itself. That means ensuring illegal aliens don't get coverage meant for Americans in need. It means implementing work requirements to ensure that adults who can work but refuse to cannot keep cheating the system. We're going to continue to call this out, and we're going to put the facts out there, and the people are going to be able to judge it for themselves.
House Speaker Mike Johnson at a news conference today. With the final few committees finishing up work on their portions of budget reconciliation, the results will be put into one bill. And the House Budget Committee has scheduled a markup on that package for Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. C-SPAN will have coverage. Speaker Johnson looking to get a full House vote on budget reconciliation next week. House Democrats are, as a bloc, opposing the budget reconciliation bill being put together by the Republicans. Congressman Pete Aguilar, Democrat of California, the caucus chair, spoke about it at a news conference today.
This week, Republicans have laid out exactly who they are fighting for. After weeks of promises that they wouldn't cut Medicaid, their budget contains drastic cuts that will throw millions off of health insurance. After campaigning on helping working-class Americans get ahead, their budget, once again, rewards billionaires and wealthy corporations and makes it harder for families to make ends meet. They are watching prices go up because of Trump's reckless tariffs, and their response is to take food off of the table for women, veterans, and children. The Republican budget doesn't address the cost of living crisis. It makes it worse. The cost of groceries, clothing, and everyday necessities are still too high, and Republicans want to add to that and make health care more expensive on top of it. This isn't about helping people find good-paying jobs or a shot at a better life. This is simply about helping people like Elon Musk pay less in taxes. House Democrats believe that we can shore up these basic needs, programs, and help everyday Americans reach their full potential. It's long past time that the wealthiest of Americans pay their fair share, and we make it easier for working families to afford basic needs like health care and housing. These devastating cuts will make Americans, particularly children, sicker, hungrier, and poorer. They're shortchanging the future just so their friends can continue to get richer.
Congressman Pete Aguilar, Democrat of California, the House Democratic Caucus chair at a news conference. If the House Republican budget reconciliation bill passes the House, it will go on to the Senate. There's a story today from Politico. Senator Ron Johnson said Wednesday he thinks House Republicans' reconciliation bill is going down and he's working to ensure its demise. He said, "The big, beautiful bill, I think that's the Titanic. I think that's going down because I think I have enough colleagues in the Senate that this has resonated with that say, yeah, we have to return to a reasonable pre-pandemic spending." That was from Politico. He spoke at a Political Live event in Washington, and Senator Johnson is a Republican from Wisconsin. Wall Street today, the Dow down 89, NASDAQ up 136, and S&P up 6. From the Cincinnati Enquirer, Vice President JD Vance mentioned the death of Hamilton County Deputy Larry Henderson at a breakfast he hosted for National Police Week. Vance hosted state and local law enforcement officers at the vice president's residence May 14th. Police say Rodney Hinton Jr. struck Henderson with his car as the deputy was directing traffic for the University of Cincinnati commencement May 2nd. Earlier that day, Hinton had watched body camera footage of a Cincinnati police officer shooting his 18-year-old son, Ryan. Cincinnati police were investigating a stolen SUV. Hinton has been charged with aggravated murder and faces the death penalty. Reporting from the Cincinnati Enquirer, Vice President Vance held that breakfast with the state and local law enforcement in Washington, D.C.
A few weeks ago, I guess, a man was killed by a police officer. The police officer, the body cam footage showed, was totally justified. He was doing his job in keeping the people of Cincinnati safe. And the gentleman who was killed, his father started to hate police because of it. And maybe he already hated police before then, but he decided he wanted to take revenge on police. Not even on the officer who took the life of his son, but on a totally different police officer, just to exact revenge against the police in that area of the country, which of course is my hometown. And what happened is a police officer who had just actually retired but returned to special duty in the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. He was helping people at the University of Cincinnati when he was mowed down by a bloodthirsty criminal who exacted revenge for something a police officer was actually legally entitled to do. And that, of course, is, and I want to make sure I get his name right, that's Deputy Henderson, Larry Henderson, who lost his life because he was doing his job and keeping people safe. And when I think about why that senseless crime happened, obviously you've got to place blame on the guy who committed the crime, but I also think a lot of the blame falls on American leadership, who for too long have made our police officers out to be enemies instead of the great public servants that all of us know that they are. So know, from the president on down, this administration stands behind you guys. We love you guys. We know that you're out there doing a good job for us. And I think that moral leadership matters just as much as the public policy, but from this administration, you're of course going to get both. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Vice President JD Vance at a National Police Week breakfast with law enforcement he hosted at the Vice President's residence in Washington, D.C. this morning. The U.S. House is debating and voting on several bills this week concerning police, including one today that would expand concealed carry for active and retired law enforcement. The House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, tried and failed to get another bill up today to direct the architect of the Capitol to install on the western front of the U.S. Capitol a plaque honoring officers who responded to the violence during the attack on the U.S. Capitol January 6, 2021, during the counting of the Electoral College votes showing that President-elect Joe Biden had defeated President Donald Trump in the 2020 election.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on House Administration be discharged from further consideration of H. Con. Res. 33. a bill directing the architect of the Capitol to install at a permanent location on the western front of the United States Capitol building an honorific plaque listing the names of all of the officers of the United States Capitol Police, the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia, and other federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies and protective entities who responded to the violence that occurred at the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021, and ask for its immediate consideration of the House.
Under guidelines consistently issued by the successive speakers as recorded in Section 956 of the House Rules and Manual, the chair is constrained not to entertain the request unless it has been cleared by the bipartisan floor and committee's leaderships.
Speaker, parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will state his inquiry.
This is Police Week pursuant to Public Law 87-726, enacted on October 1st of 1962. Police Week here in the United States Congress, where Congress honors the courage, the bravery, the service, the sacrifice, and the heroism of members of law enforcement. Is that correct?
Okay. The gentleman's not stating a proper parliamentary inquiry.
Further parliamentary inquiry?
The gentleman will state his inquiry.
Do the House rules require compliance with the 2022 Public Law 117-103, signed by the President at the time, that requires a plaque listing the name of all police officers who defended the Capitol on January 6 to be placed on the western front of the Capitol building? Do the House rules require compliance with that public law?
The chair will not respond to an inquiry regarding the general application of the rules of the House to a matter not currently pending before the House.
All right, further parliamentary inquiry?
The gentleman will state his inquiry.
We appear to be in violation of the House rules, given that the law that was passed in 2022 required that a plaque honoring those heroic police officers be placed on the western front of the Capitol building no later than March 15th, 2023. But 791 days have passed, and this Republican Congress has refused to comply with the law. It's time to honor those heroic officers. It's unconscionable, it's unpatriotic, it's unfathomable, it's unacceptable, and it's un-American.
The chair will
and
not
you need
provide
to honor those officers
an advisory
and
opinion.
treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair will not provide an advisory opinion.
The House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, on the House floor, and in the Speaker's chair, Congressman Rob Whitman, Republican from Virginia. Washington Today continues in a moment.
Democracy. It isn't just an idea. It's a process shaped by leaders elected to the highest offices and entrusted to a select few with guarding its basic principles. It's where debates unfold, decisions are made, and the nation's course is charted. Democracy in real time. This is your government at work. This is C-SPAN, giving you your democracy unfiltered.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you find your podcasts. Story from Fox News. President Donald Trump signed a series of agreements with Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, in Doha, Qatar, on Wednesday. The agreements involved a purchasing agreement by Qatar for Boeing aircraft, as well as letters of intent and joint cooperation between Qatar and the U.S. The Emir also signed an intent agreement to purchase MQ-9 drone aircraft, reporting from Fox News. The two leaders spoke at the signing ceremony.
Thank you very much. We had a couple of hours of great meeting with the President, and we discussed many issues, our great bilateral relationship, and also the situation in the region. Of course, I think after signing these documents, we are going to another level of relationship between Qatar and the United States. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. President, again for this historic visit. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And this has been a very interesting couple of hours. We discussed the world. We discussed Russia and Ukraine, where you've been a tremendous help in so many different ways. We certainly discussed Iran, where it's been really an interesting situation. I have a feeling it's going to work out. I think it's going to work. It's got to work out one way or the other. We know it's going to work out. But you were of great help, and other things. But in particular, trade. The trade is the. Kelly's telling me from Boeing, that's the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. That's pretty good. And that's 140. Was that a 140 or 160? Well, yeah, but you're right. It's actually 200, including the 40, so it's over $200 billion. But 160 in terms of the jets. That's fantastic. So that's a record, Kelly. And congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there. Get them out there. But I just want to thank you. We've been friends for a long time, long before politics. Well, for you it was politics. For me it wasn't, right? But we've been friends for a long time, and this is an outstanding man. He's a great man, and we're going to help each other. The United States is in a very strong position militarily. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. You're buying a lot of that equipment, actually, and I think we're going to see some of it in action tomorrow. At the, we won't call it an air fair, but it's going to be sort of an air fair. We're going to be shown a display that's going to be incredible. They have the latest and the greatest of our planes and just about everything else. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. But I just want to thank you for the friendship, for the long-time friendship. And again, long before any of this stuff, we just liked each other. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But we always had a very special relationship. And we came from Saudi Arabia, where we have another great man over there that's a friend of yours. And you two guys get along so well and like each other. You sort of remind me a little bit of each other, if you want to know the truth. They're both tall, handsome guys that happen to be very smart. But he's also a very special guy, and it's good to see all the relationships forming in the Middle East, because the Middle East is really being talked about all over the world, and we're having a lot to do with it. We're helping a lot, but they're doing a tremendous job. So I just want to thank everybody very much for being here. I want to thank the media. The media has been very fair, actually, and it's a great honor to be with you. This is, you take a look at this room. This room is the real deal. That's called white marble. It's very hard to buy. Believe me, I know very well, because you try to buy it, you can't buy it. And you just take a look at what you have here. It's been incredible what you've been able to build as a nation. And we're with you all the way, and you know that.
President Donald Trump and the Emir of Qatar in Doha had a signing ceremony. Later, there was a state dinner held in the president's honor. Returning to the Fox News article, U.S. relations with Doha have come a long way since 2017, when Donald Trump accused Qatar of harboring terrorism. From there, Qatar became a major non-NATO ally to the U.S. in 2022 under President Joe Biden, and is home to the Al Udeid Air Base, one of the U.S.'s largest Middle Eastern bases and a key hub for U.S. Central Command operations. That from the Fox News article. Story from Reuters. U.S. President Donald Trump met with Syria's president in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday and urged him to normalize ties with longtime foe Israel after a surprise U.S. announcement that it would lift all sanctions on the Islamist-led government. And on Air Force One flying from Saudi Arabia to Qatar, reporters asked President Trump about it.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you
but
at all?
He's got a real shot at pulling it together. I spoke with President Erdogan, who I'm very friendly with him. He feels he's got a shot at doing a good job. So it's a torn up country.
Do you think Syria will join the Abraham Accords?
Yeah, but I think they have to get themselves straightened out. I told him, I hope you're going to join when it's straightened out. He said yes. But they have a lot of work to do.
President Donald Trump with reporters on Air Force One. There's a story from the Independent newspaper. Damascus courted Donald Trump with a range of incentives, including the potential for a Trump Tower in the Syrian capital before a meeting between the United States president and his Syrian counterpart. The strategic pitch also includes the possibility of a détente with Israel and U.S. access to Syrian oil and gas reserves, according to sources familiar with the effort. That article from Independent. President Trump was asked on Air Force One about a possible Trump Tower in Damascus.
There have been some reports of the Syrian president wanting a Trump Tower in Damascus. Did that come up at all?
No, I haven't heard. We'll have to wait a little while. Everything's calmed down a little while with the country. I think he's he's got the potential. He's a real leader. And, he led a charge, and he's pretty amazing. But did you see him? Did you get to see him? No. He was there. He was with us at the event.
President Trump on Air Force One with reporters flying from Saudi Arabia to Qatar. The president's final stop on the Middle East trip will be United Arab Emirates on Thursday, although the president did not rule out the possibility that he may go to Turkey, where on Thursday Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be for ceasefire talks between Ukrainian and Russian officials. President Volodymyr Zelensky has invited Russian President Vladimir Putin to be there for one-on-one negotiations, but no word if that is going to happen. This is Washington Today. Another Fox News story. A federal judge on Wednesday ordered the release of Badr Khan Suri, the Georgetown University postdoctoral researcher detained by immigration officials in March for allegedly spreading propaganda in support of Hamas. Federal judge issued her order from the bench during a court hearing in Virginia, saying that the government presented no evidence to refute Suri's claim that he was being punished for his views on the war in Gaza. Suri, who is married to an American citizen, was being held in federal detention in Texas following his arrest. That was from Fox News. Suri is originally from India. Suri's wife, originally from Gaza, Mahfouz Ahmad Youssef, spoke today at a forum about her husband's case held in Alexandria, Virginia.
Seeing people make their ways to the court to say no to academic repression, no to silencing the voice of justice, and no to the Trump administration detention of a student and a scholar who dare to speak truth to power. I thank everyone who came out to support the cause of truth-telling, speaking up, and standing for Palestinian rights. Thank you. Your support restores my hope for freedom, my trust in justice, not only for Badr, but for all students and academics and all oppressed around the world. Hearing the judge's words brought tears to my eyes. I wish I could give her a heartfelt hug from me and from my 3 children who long to see their father. Badr told me, if my suffering in the detention center is because I married to a Palestinian and because I spoke out against the genocide in Gaza, then I should wear it as a badge of honor. What I endure here is a drop in the ocean compared to the pain of the Palestinian who has been bombed, starved, and massacred for 585 days.
Mahfouz Ahmad Youssef in Alexandria, Virginia, a discussion about her husband's case. Her husband, Badr Khan Suri, ordered today by a federal judge, released from ICE custody. CNN story, 1 in 5 people in the Gaza Strip are facing starvation as the entire territory edges closer to famine, a new United Nations-backed report warns after nearly 3 months of Israel's blockade of critically needed humanitarian aid. ICE's acting administrator, Todd Lyons, testified today before U.S. House Appropriations Subcommittee. The ranking Democrat on the committee, Lauren Underwood of Illinois, asked him about what happened last week in New Jersey when 3 members of Congress tried to get into an ICE facility.
Like most Americans, I am alarmed that ICE is trying to build more detention facilities while reducing oversight of those facilities at the same time. Last week, DHS accused members of Congress who were exercising their oversight responsibilities of, quote, illegally breaking in to an ICE facility in New Jersey. The department's spokesperson said, quote, had these members requested a tour, we would have facilitated a tour of the facility. Mr. Lyons, members of Congress do not have to request a tour of ICE detention centers to be allowed in. Federal law explicitly requires you to admit us even if we show up unannounced without previously requesting a tour. In light of this incident, what actions are you taking to ensure ICE employees know the law and are following it? And have you issued a memo or guidance to the workforce clarifying that members of Congress must be admitted in these circumstances, or are you requiring additional training?
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. I appreciate it. Ma'am, I'll go back to the Consolidated Appropriation Act from 2020. The staff knows that we are fully supportive to ensure that the oversight that is granted by law by this committee is abided by. So we have proper access and oversight from the men and women of your committee in Congress to oversee what Immigration and Customs Enforcement are doing in our detention centers. We have nothing to hide. I hear with a promise that ICE will be fully transparent. We do acknowledge that any member of Congress does have the right to show up for an inspection of one of our facilities in their oversight capacity. In this situation, we would ask that while it is unannounced, that Congress elected officials do respect and to accordance with the Appropriations Act in Section 532, presentation of ID to go through screening, don't bring any contraband, things like that. We do also, and I'd like to just point out that congressional staff does require 24 hours. We did encounter that over this weekend, and we did address that, and it was handled properly, and those tours have been scheduled. So yes, ma'am, the staff is fully aware of the Appropriation Act of 2020, specifically 532, which grants that oversight.
Okay, excellent. The law is unambiguous on this issue, and we expect ICE to follow the law. With my remaining time, I want to discuss the deaths in ICE custody. In just the last 4 months, we have seen at least 7 deaths. Since 2018, ICE has had a congressional requirement to make this information publicly available on its website, but there's a 90-day delay, and it seems to be missing at least 3 more recent deaths in custody that we've received notifications about. To date, what is the total number of deaths in ICE custody since January 20th, 2025?
Thank you, ma'am, for that question. Our total death in custody right now is up to 9. We do conduct a thorough investigation on all of those, treating the Office of Professional Responsibility as well as the local jurisdiction as well. ICE is, as I said, dedicated to transparency, and I will assure, ma'am, as a get back, that we get all the information back to you and your staff.
And publicly available online as pursuant to the congressional directive.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I yield back.
Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, Democrat from Illinois, ranking member on Appropriations Subcommittee, holding a hearing with the ICE Acting Administrator Todd Lyons. Story from the Hill. Speaker Mike Johnson said House Republicans are weighing what kind of actions to take against 3 House Democrats who got in a scuffle with law enforcement at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility. Johnson said, "We're having conversations. We had them this morning in the House Republican Conference meeting about appropriate action that we need to take here to address that inappropriate behavior, the wildly inappropriate behavior." Quote from Speaker Johnson in the article from The Hill. Story from Politico. Michigan Congressman Sri Tanadar chose not to follow through on a threat to force a House vote on impeaching President Donald Trump Wednesday amid mounting pressure from fellow Democrats. Tanadar did not call up his resolution as expected at a Wednesday evening vote series, and the window for action has now passed. Earlier in the day, when it was uncertain whether he would call it up, he held a news conference on Capitol Hill.
Has Democratic leadership communicated anything to you, whether to move forward or not?
Well, the leadership really want to not move forward with this. They want to focus on, and you heard Chair Aguilar has said publicly that this is not the time to do it. So that is the opinion of the leadership, that this is the time for them, that they want to focus on Medicaid, they want to focus on the cruel cuts on SNAP and the benefits nutritional program. They want to focus on the budget and the appropriations, and they want to focus on other issues, which is fine. I just tell them that, hey, we can do that and we can do this as well. Yes.
Impeached before, it doesn't seem to have changed his behavior, his actions. Well, I know you say you're sending a message, but kind of, are you convinced that this will change anything? Well,
we got to keep trying. If we don't do anything, he will look at as a free pass to continue to do. He is totally unhinged. He's in his 2nd term, and he doesn't know that, but it is his last term. Right, and so he's unhinged. So he is even more bolden, is much more bolder to pursue his unethical, illegal activities. And if we can go around the country and use this momentum that we now have to fight against this president. Maybe the people, American people, would send him a strong message in November of 2026, and maybe that will. But we got to start somewhere to let people. Look what happened in Wisconsin. People send him a strong message. So the way continue to fight, he will get a message. He will continue to get a message. Already the polls are showing his approval rating is the lowest in the last 70 years of any president in his end of his first 100 days. So we have multiple ways to send a message. This is one of the many ways we are doing that.
Congressman Sri Thanedar, Democrat from Michigan, at a news conference on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol earlier today. He had filed a notice to bring up a resolution, articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump, but when the time came to actually call for a vote relating to it, he did not insist upon that. It was indicated from the House Democratic leadership that they would urge a yes vote on a motion to table or kill it. Congressman Thanedar putting out a statement after talking with my colleagues. I've decided not to force a vote on impeachment today. Instead, I will add to my articles of impeachment and continue to rally the support of both Democrats and Republicans to defend the Constitution with me. The original articles had 7 of them. The first one was obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power. Trump denied due process and defied federal court orders. Number 2, seizing Congress's power of the purse. He froze funds and dismantled agencies without congressional approval. This is from a press release from the congressman. That's 1 and 2. There were 5 more. Today as well, again, when it was uncertain whether the vote relating to these articles would happen, Congressman Pete Aguilar, Democrat of California, the caucus chair, got a question at a news conference.
I understand leadership is going to vote to table Congressman Thanedar's impeachment resolution today. Does leadership also plan to do so with Congressman Al Green's impeachment resolution?
Well, resolutions, in order to be to force a vote, resolutions of privilege have to be ready, and the individual, the maker of the motion, has to go to the floor and ask for that. We will deal with what is being offered this week. I have said before from this podium that this is not the right approach we should be taking. We'll join members of the leadership team in voting to table that motion. Right now, our focus is on health care being stripped away from the American people. That is the most urgent and dire thing that we could be talking about this week. Everything else is a distraction.
Congressman Pete Aguilar, Democrat of California, the House Democratic Caucus chair, at a news conference this morning. Later in the day, the congressman who offered the impeachment resolution, Sri Thanedar, Democrat of Michigan, did not insist upon the vote. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Sign up for C-SPAN's evening newsletter word for word and get the stories making headlines in Washington emailed to you every day. Subscribe at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night.